I'm sorry, did you just categorize people of color alongside perverts and the disabled? Is that what I just heard? Hi, my name is Reese Waters. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the page. Now, I've already covered the bias of our national media. We want to attack Kamala Harris just for laughing. And then turn around and treat this man like he's senile. You know, that's just Trump being Trump. As if this isn't a red flag.
You take a look at bacon and some of these products, and some people don't eat bacon anymore. And we are going to get the energy prices down. When we get energy down, you know, this was caused by their horrible energy wind. They want wind all over the place. But when it doesn't blow, we have a little problem.
Because we certainly know it was for Biden.
I also thought it was interesting that she didn't take any responsibility at the end for telling the American people that Joe Biden was fine and he was strong. I mean, we all know that's not true. That's why he's out of the race, and she's still standing by the idea that he was fine and he's strong and that he's fine today. Nobody believes that. And I just think at some point, then why isn't he running?
Because he's too old, point blank. Same reason why Donald Trump probably shouldn't be running.
I also owe y'all a piece about our local news, and specifically Sinclair. Oh, Sinclair, you thought you was slick. You thought you was slick because I got distracted because our politics are just so insane and crazy that I didn't have the time to devote an entire video to you. Oh, I'ma get there.
Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Actually, I wasn't even talking about that. That was even before I was doing troubled waters. So y'all go back a long time when it comes to this kind of media manipulation. I was talking about this. I didn't forget.
The Sinclair Broadcast Group, which is owned by a right-wing media mogul, seems to be working hard to push dubious claims about President Biden's mental fitness for office. And they're pushing it to millions of Americans. Aaron Rupar of Public Notice and Judd Legum of Popular Information highlighted how Sinclair has aggressively worked the claims about Biden's age into dozens of local broadcasts across the country.
Wall Street Journal has published a story which calls the mental fitness of President Biden into question.
As the Wall Street Journal is out with new reporting calling into question the mental fitness of President Joe Biden.
The issue could be an election decider.
The issue could be an election decider.
Election decider.
The issue could be an election decider.
Mental fitness.
Mental fitness.
And the mental fitness.
The mental
fitness of President Joe
Biden.
Yes, we have manipulated cable news. We have manipulated print media. We got manipulated local news now. Well, certainly YouTube and independent journalism would be the answer, because obviously that would be free of that kind of influence.
But we begin tonight with Russia still listening and still interfering in our elections. That is what we learned when the Justice Department announced indictments and sanctions Wednesday in a scheme that sounds straight out of 2016. The DOJ charged 2 Russian media executives in an alleged plot to illegally funnel millions of dollars to right-wing influencers by way of a pro-Trump media outlet. Specifically, the department charged 2 employees of Russian-backed media company RT with a nearly $10 million plan to fund an unnamed Tennessee content creation company as one of their covert projects to influence American politics. The company's description matches that of Tennessee-based Tenet Media, according to a review by NBC News of details included in the indictment. In a related but separate legal action, prosecutors seized 32 Russian-controlled web domains tied to a broader Russian influence campaign accused of spreading propaganda through bogus news sites to American voters. An affidavit supporting seizing the domains showed information detailing a series of topics Russian actors wanted amplified in the influencers' content. Things like encroaching universal poverty, record inflation, the halting of economic growth, unaffordable prices for food and essential goods, risk of job loss for white Americans, privileges for people of color, perverts, and the disabled.
I'm sorry, did you just categorize people of color alongside perverts and the disabled? Is that what I just heard? People of color, perverts, and the disabled. Is that what I just heard? Also of note here, item number 2 was risk of job loss for white Americans. Ooh, we not talking about the black jobs no more, huh? No, this is not, we're not concerned about the black jobs no more. Risk of job loss for white Americans.
Constant lies of the U.S. political party administration about the real situation in the country. Threat of crime coming from people of color and immigrants, including new immigrants from Ukraine.
Okay, I gotta stop us right there again. Okay, so the whole idea of the migrant crime epidemic really speaks to the immigration issue and the need to have secure borders. How does people of color, if you include crime from people of color alongside immigrant crime, now you're just racist. So is that what? Oh, that is it. Okay. Oh, it's just racism. Okay. All right.
On foreign policy and at the expense of the interests of white U.S. citizens.
Okay, I'm gonna have to stop us again right now. So. Black people, I know, contrary to popular opinion, pay taxes. So if there's overspending on foreign policy, that would also affect black citizens as well as Latino citizens as well as Asians. No, they don't. Oh, it's just racism. It's just open racism. Okay, all right.
Constant lies to the voters by U.S. political party B in power. And last but not least, America is suffering a defeat. Despite candidate B's efforts, we are being drawn into the war. Our guys will die in Ukraine. Now, if that also sounds like a list of pro-Trump right-wing talking points, or frankly, your average day on Fox, it essentially is. But it also highlights how Russia launders its propaganda into the American psyche, especially through the use of social media, which is why Tenet Media came in handy. The indictment notes Company One, which describes itself as a network of heterodox commentators that focus on Western political and cultural issues, the exact same language used by Tenet Media on its website and social media channels.
Oh, that's awkward. Y'all used the same. You just copied and paste from the. Wow, that is. Come on, man. ChatGPT could have paraphrased that for you.
Frankly, your average day on Fox. It essentially is. But it also highlights how Russia launders its propaganda into the American psyche, especially through the use of social media, which is why Tenet Media came in handy. The indictment notes Company One, which describes itself as a network of heterodox commentators that focus on Western political and cultural issues, the exact same language used by Tenet Media on its website and social media channels, and identifies 6 commentators as its talent. The indictment doesn't name them, but Tenet Media has 6 right-wing YouTube commentators on its roster. Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, Dave Rubin, Taylor Hanson, Lauren Southern, and Matt Christensen. And you would be forgiven if right now you're asking yourself, who? Just know that some of them are prominent MAGA-lebrities. They adamantly deny involvement in posts on Elon Musk's ex-Twitter. Tim Pool said that he and others were deceived and were victims. Dave Rubin claimed he knew absolutely nothing about any of this fraudulent activity.
Oh, we'll get into that a little bit later. Y'all are victims. Victims, yeah, victims of those Benjamin Franklins. That's what you is.
The indictment does suggest the unnamed commentators were unaware that they were being paid by Russian efforts. But a look into the internet presence of some of these content shows what Russia was looking for.
What else is going on with Ukraine these days? It's not just that we are funding the war. Everyone knows that we're funding a war, which you might argue if you're funding the war, if you're paying for the war, maybe that means you're in the war, but we've never actually gotten authorization for this war. Our leaders keep telling us that this is the most important thing in town.
This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
We actually didn't even do that video justice. Let's go ahead and run that clip in its entirety.
But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
The man went as far as to apologize to Russia. Ooh, that's not going to look good. That is not going to look good with these. Sometimes you just got to know when to fall back and know when they got you. Just make sure you save that money, put it in a good mutual fund or something.
Apologize to Russia. Of course, it's not like Russia had to pay everyone, since we all know there are elected officials willing to push the Kremlin line for free.
Vladimir Putin has not said he wants to go march across Europe and take Europe. And the reality is Ukraine is not even a NATO member nation. But if you want to know something, Lloyd Austin and the others here, more than anything, want to send your uncles, your cousins, and your sons and daughters to the front lines in Ukraine.
I will not vote for $1 more to Ukraine. I will not vote for one more piece of materiel to Ukraine. We are far too entangled in this conflict. I believe we have extended this conflict.
What's in America's best interest is to accept Ukraine is going to have to cede some territory to the Russians, and we need to bring this war to a close.
I don't know, Joy Reid. You might be giving them too much credit. I think maybe we haven't connected all of the dots yet, although I wouldn't put it past Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz to be out here doing that work for free.
I know you might have been surprised not to see former Fox host Tucker Carlson in there, but he does make an appearance in the Justice Department's indictment, just not by name. The indictment reveals that one of the indicted RT employees shared a video of a well-known U.S. political commentator visiting a grocery store in Russia, a likely reference to Tucker's infamous Moscow shopping trip in which he marveled how much better it was shopping in the dictatorship than shopping at home, ahead of the interview in which he did everything but literally sit in Vladimir Putin's lap and hug him like he's Santa Claus. Later that day, a producer messaged the company founder saying, "They want me to post this," adding, "It just feels like over-shilling." The two founders of the media company are also unnamed in the indictment, but Tenet Media is registered to two people named Liam Donovan and Lauren Chen. Chen was fired from her job as a commentator for right-wing Blaze Media. She had contributed to videos to its Blaze TV. It seems the reality of it all is you hear these narratives. Ukraine is our true enemy, or the economy is doing so terribly, it's in ruin, in spite of ample evidence to the contrary. How the white man is falling behind because the government is giving preferential treatment to blacks and brown people. Remember the twin boogeymen of DEI and critical race theory? You hear these things and you think, yeah, these are just right-wingers being the miserable wretches that they always are. When it turns out, they might also be getting cash apps from Mother Russia to say it. But it's not like some genius idea, right? The Russians are just banking on the things that right-wingers are already hopped up about in order to scare white American voters into voting for the candidate Vladimir Putin wants to win.
Now, it's at this point I have to feel particular shame for right-wingers. Not that they are capable, but those of you that were echoing these talking points, this anti-DEI and anti-CRT and the whole crime wave and things like that. And yes, I'm talking about you, Fox News. The fact that even the Russians realize that this is a useful tool to sow discord and nothing more really eliminates all validity from the words that are coming out of your mouth. Even the Russians, by virtue of the money that they are paying in order for you to spew this nonsense, are also ceding it's all garbage. Because if it wasn't, they wouldn't have to pay you to say it. Now would they?
And no surprise, his preferred candidate is this guy.
Russia, you had a relationship with them and North Korea and the mullahs and
But nobody was tougher with Russia than me.
Joining me now is David Korn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones and MSNBC political contributor, and Anand Giridharadas, publisher of the newsletter The Ink and MSNBC political analyst. Thank you both for being here. David, I will start with you. It is sort of remarkable to see the complete capture of the U.S. Republican Party by pro-Russian interests. So this group that is now indicted, it's not like they had to work hard. The right has already been pre-captured to the Russian side. But what do you make of this indictment and what it is revealed?
Well, we got to look at this a little bit in historical context. This isn't coming out of nowhere. This is now the third election in a row that the Russians have tried to intervene to help Donald Trump.
Now, Joy Reid had one of the publishers of The Ink on as a guest, and I just want you to listen to how he framed this indictment.
Yeah, and Anand, that's where I want to come to you because, you've tailed with some of these folks who were annoyed that you were criticizing the billionaire class. But I mean, to me, getting at these people who a lot of people who are watching this show probably don't even know who Tim Pool and these people are. But that is because they are trying to capture a much younger demographic. They're sort of taking that Russian capture and then marketing it down to younger and younger receivers of information.
Yeah, we have a post up at The Ink tonight trying to look at this indictment in a larger light. And I'd say a couple things. First of all, there are a lot of things countries can do to each other, particularly when they're powerful countries like Russia. There's a big menu, right? Binders full of choices available to Vladimir Putin, right? You can take out power grids. You can do stuff on banking systems. You can bomb things. You can do assassinations, the whole slew of things. I think first we have to think about the fact that in these three elections, as David's talked about, basically the era we've lived in the last decade plus, the Russian weapon of choice to sabotage the United States of America and push it into democratic decay is the inflammation of our discourse. Right? I think that's really significant. Like, I don't think these operations necessarily have tilted elections or had that enormous an effect. We have our own problems in this country that we don't need Russian help to create. But it is their judgment of our Achilles heel that is so revealing here. And when you look at some of these people, these very inflammatory people who they've been funding, it makes you realize, like regular people at home, you are being manipulated to hate your neighbor more than you otherwise would. You are being manipulated to feel like everything is hopeless. You are being manipulated into these positions. And in 2016, by the way, they did this to the left and the right. It was all over the place. And I think it actually fills me with a certain kind of hope that maybe this country is not as gone in terms of toxicity and the way we see each other and relate to each other as we perceive ourselves to be when we go online, when we go on YouTube, when we go on X. Maybe a certain amount of what has happened to us is this, forced inflammation from the outside, because it is their judgment that way we relate to each other, that way we see each other, the way we talk to each other will ultimately bring us down.
Now, two incredible points that he just raised. I'll take the first one. The fact that in Russia's determination, we have been shown to be so susceptible to misinformation and disinformation and to hate and fear-mongering that would be their weapon of choice. And don't think that lesson isn't lost on the Trump administration and the Trump campaigns since 2016 either. It just takes people that are devious, people that are divorced from any true feelings about this country and its well-being. It takes people that are just so independent of true American nationalism, like actual patriotism. It takes people so divorced from that as to go along with this particular scheme. Oh, wait, my bad. You're victims though, right?
In the wake of this incredibly embarrassing indictment that shows several online right-wing figure like that right-wing commentator you just heard, Tim Pool, that they were allegedly unwitting secret paid agents of the Russian government attempting to sabotage our election and sow discord among the American populace. Many of those right-wing personalities have become very defensive. A couple of them called it a leaked indictment, which was funny, even though it's just a public court document. Poole did at least revise his response when that was pointed out to him. The point that many of them have been making, or the defenders have been making, to the extent they are presenting any defense at all, is to say, look, I didn't know where the money was from. I was paid to say what I would have said anyway. And honestly, I believe they're telling the truth on that. All the anti-immigrant rhetoric and the vile culture war bigotry is the kind of stuff they were saying before the Russians showed up to pay them for it. It's always the way this stuff works. The most effective tactic to manipulate public opinion through foreign influence or to change laws on behalf of the wealthy interests is not to find someone who is opposed to what you want to do and then give them cash and have them renounce publicly and tell them what to say. No, instead it's to go out and find people that are already aligned with those interests, and then just subsidize the hell out of those folks by throwing money at them, by raising their profile so they can just keep doing what they were already doing. And ideally, they do it for a long time, and they're comfortable doing it. Comfortable, in this case, to the tune of $100,000 per video, which I gotta say is pretty cushy in the world of digital media.
Now, I particularly would like to point to the line, I didn't know where the money was from. I didn't know what the money was for. Oh, because we're all just so used and accustomed to accepting huge sums of money without knowing exactly where it's from or what it was for. Oh no, I am such a victim because they forcibly placed hundreds of thousands of dollars into my account. My poor money that was already there was scared for its life. It didn't know where to go. It didn't know where to hide. And it just kept accumulating. And it was more and more money. And my poor already there savings ended up being dwarfed by comparison. So your best case scenario is you had no idea that you were mirroring Russian propaganda and that you were unwittingly sowing discord in our society to make us weaker from the inside. That's your best case scenario, is you were just accepting large sums of money, didn't know what it was for, but your real opinions just happened to align with Russian propaganda and their very specific talking points in order to decay American society. Well, if that's the case, then you would definitely fall back from the internet at this point, right? If that was the case, that these were your real feelings and you see just how destructive and aligned with our enemy they are, you would certainly do some soul searching and decide that this probably isn't for you if this is where you land with things, right? Oh, no, you're not doing that. You're just going to stay here and continue to do it. Well, now I just got no other thing to conclude than that you're guilty. Like you left me no place to go. But I love the second point that was raised by the publisher, and that's where I would like to land. As wild as it is, knowing that there are these people out there that were pushing this kind of propaganda, we're inflaming people's emotions and inflaming people's feelings, also means that this might not have necessarily been organic to America in 2024. I can't at the same time see that this kind of manipulation is happening without also knowing that the people that I've been so appalled by have also been manipulated. And if that volume can be turned up, that means hopefully it can also be turned down. However, in order to turn it down means we have to somehow disconnect those minds from our manipulated media. And as I just laid out in the open, that manipulated media is absolutely everywhere. And that is why I'm troubled.